morning. Welcome to this sacred space, this special time, this community that we make together, holy by our presence and our commitment. I'm Ruthie, Heather Ruth Richardson, and I'm a longtime UUTC visitor, going back to the days when we met at Brevard College. I live in this vibrant community with my sweet family and work as a therapist holding space for young people and families. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your sexual orientation or gender identity, however you vote, whatever your race, your age, your privilege, your physical or mental or intellectual ability, whatever faiths you have known, you are welcome here. This welcoming congregation is a safe place, a home for hope, a place that celebrates each person's unique value while acknowledging that we each belong to an interdependent web, which is holding us in love and calling us toward compassion and justice, courage, and transformation. If we have any guests or returning visitors like myself today, thank you for taking the time to be here. If it's your first time in worship in this space or your 100th time, it's a beautiful blessing to be together. When we congregate, we are weaving together our unique, ephemeral, full, complex, painful, miraculous, and precious lives. I have some announcements from Reverend Bob. Number one, get out the vote postcards. Reverend Bob handed out 1,000 postcards last week. There are about 250 left. See R.K. Young in the lobby today for a pack of 25 and instructions. These are all being addressed to Mecklenburg County registered voters who might not have shown up last time at the polls who could use our encouragement. Number two, Brevard Jewish Community Speaker next Sunday afternoon at UUTC. UUTC is the host for next Sunday's 3:30 p.m. lecture by Professor Eric Al Goldstein, Associate Professor of History and Jewish Studies at Emory University. This is free and open to the public. It's entitled, "Where Did Jews Fit in America's Culture of Race?" This speaker series has been extremely popular, and you might want to arrive early in order to get a good seat. UUTC Retreat at the Mountain, October 13th to the 15th. We have 27 people signed up for the retreat at the mountain on Columbus Day weekend. Call the mountain to register if you are interested. There is assistance available for those who might otherwise not be able to afford the registration cost. We want everyone to attend regardless of financial condition. And finally, Interfaith Day of Caring Habitat Build. UUTC is just learned that Transylvania Habitat for Humanity will have a joint build with our congregation and the Sacred Heart Catholic Congregation on September 20th. Sign-up sheets and release forms are available on the counter in the lobby. It's a big honor for me today to introduce our speaker. Lauren Jean Agrella-Sevilla is someone who rather aptly is known by many names, some of which are very fun and silly and perhaps not even appropriate to share in this space. Her various names and nicknames suit the many roles and ways that she shows up in the world. To say that Lauren is living a full life is a gross understatement. Over the 20 years that I've known her, I've always admired, and it's no wonder that Lauren is in actuality a wonderful mother, sister, partner, friend, teacher, student, therapist, athlete, coach, yogi, dancer, and occasional secret minister, among other things. Lauren's energy is a gift, and we are all fortunate that she is choosing to share it with us this morning. I love you. All right. It's this time that we pause to honor the milestones, joys, and sorrows, the change in our lives, and those who need our healing thoughts. We believe that joys are magnified and joys eased by sharing them in a loving community. Somebody did it for me, thank you. I only see one. One joy has been recorded up here. It says, "Happy birthday to Daryl Rock from RK." team here. I'm going to light one more with the correct lighter for all of the joys and sorrows that we carry unspoken in our hearts. My glasses are sweaty. All right, if you could remain seated and quietly greet one another, take your time for that.
Good morning, y'all. I'm so glad to be with y'all today, and my dear friend Heather Ruthie and I have been able to co-create this this morning, and so I just want to express gratitude for your generous introduction, and also friendship with this woman has been a gift of my life, and the poems that we are sharing today, some of the readings, Ruthie dug them up and found this beautiful inspiration to go with this message that's been on my heart, so I'm really grateful for the teamwork. I'd like to share a poem this morning by Mohawk Hoff. The poem is, "My grandmother washes her feet in the sink of the bathroom at Sears." Have y'all heard this one? Okay. I think you're going to appreciate it. My grandmother puts her feet in the sink of the bathroom at Sears to wash them in the ritual washing for prayer, wudu, because she has to pray in the store or miss the mandatory prayer time for Muslims. She does it with great poise, balancing herself with one plump, matronly arm against the automated hot air hand dryer. After having removed her support knee highs and laid them aside, folded in thirds, and given me her purse and packages to hold so she can accomplish this august ritual and get back to the ritual of shopping for housewares. Respectable Sears matrons shake their heads and frown as they notice what my grandmother is doing, an affront to American porcelain, a contamination of American standards by something foreign and unhygienic, requiring civic action and possible use of disinfectant spray. They fluster about and flutter their hands, and I can see a clash of civilizations brewing in the Sears bathroom. My grandmother, though she speaks no English, catches their meaning, and her look in the mirror says, "I have washed my feet over Iznik tile in Istanbul with water from the world's ancient irrigation systems. I have washed my feet in the bathhouses of Damascus over painted bowls imported from China among the best families from Aleppo. And if you Americans knew anything about civilization and cleanliness, you'd make whiter wash basins anyway." My grandmother knows one culture, the right one, as do these matrons of the Middle West. For them, my grandmother might as well have been squatting in the mud over a rusty tin in vaguely tropical squalor, Mexican or Middle Eastern. It doesn't matter which. When she lifts her well-groomed foot and puts it over the edge. "You can't do that," one of the women protests. Turning to me, tell her she can't do that. "We wash our feet 5 times a day," my grandmother declares hotly in Arabic. "My feet are cleaner than their sink." Worried about their sink, are they? I should worry about my feet. My grandmother nudges me. "Go on, tell them." Standing between the door and the mirror, I can see at multiple angles my grandmother and the other shoppers, all of them decent and good-hearted women, diligent in cleanliness, grooming, and decorum. Even now, my grandmother, not to be rushed, is delicately drying her pumps with tissues from her purse. For my grandmother always wears well-turned pumps that match her purse. I think in case someone from one of the best families in Aleppo should run into her. Here, in front of the Kenmore display, I smile at the Midwestern women, as if my grandmother has just said something lovely about them, and I shrug my shoulders, as if they had just apologized through me. No one is fooled, but I hold the door open for everyone. And we all emerge on the sales floor and lose ourselves in the common ground of housewares on markdown. That was Mohawk Hoff with her poem, My Grandmother Washes Her Feet in the Sink of the Bathroom at Sears. Rise as you're able if you like. We're going to sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
As I light the chalice, here's the reading for that. We are the generation that stands between the fires, behind the flame and smoke that rose from Auschwitz and from Hiroshima. Before us, the nightmare of a flood of fire, the flame and smoke that consume all earth. It is our task to make from fire not an all-consuming blaze, but the light in which we see each other fully. All of us different. All of us bearing one spark. We light these fires to see more clearly that the earth and all who live as part of it are not for burning. We light these fires to see more clearly the rainbow in our many-colored faces. Blessed is the one within the many. Blessed are the many who make the one. That was Arthur Waskow.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Kevin. I get to work with the kids here at UUTC, and next week starts our children's programming during the 10 o'clock hour again. And today's message is called Enemies. It is by Christopher Boos. It's from the UU Worship Web. Well, once upon a time, there was a little girl, and she was queen of an island. And an advisor came to her and said, "Your Majesty, the People of our island are good. We're good people, but we live in mortal peril because the island over there, they are our enemies, and we must destroy them. Oh dear, said the little girl, who's the queen. That's so terrible, but what should we do about it? And the advisor said, well, I have a plan. What we do is we put our army on a ship and we sail over in the middle of the night and we march on their shores and we destroy our enemy. Well, the queen wasn't so sure this was a good idea, so she said, thank you, my loyal advisor. Let me think on that. Could you come back tomorrow at tea time? And so the advisor said, yes, your majesty. And so he leaves. So the next day, about tea time, the advisor comes in and sees his queen having tea with the queen of the other island. And he is outraged. Your majesty, this is terrible. This is our enemy, and you have invited her here for tea? And the queen said, well, you have been a good advisor. You advised me that we would destroy our enemies and use our might against them. But I have thought that the best thing to do if we are going to get rid of our enemies is to make them into our friends. And so in this turbulent time we have, in this particularly politically turbulent time, let's do the hard work to turn our enemies into our friends. And thank you.
I believe now is the time when we share our abundance and our gratitude for having a space like this to come to.
John, your music is always such a treat. Thank you. Yeah. I'll invite us to settle in for a moment of reflection with a short meditation offered by Wendy Eckert. After I finish offering some words, we'll just have a moment of silence, and then I'll ring the chime to indicate that we'll emerge from that time. Heart space. Breathe. Deep. Listening. Heart space. Breathe. Release. Listening. May you find the courage to rest in the unknowing, curiously aware of this moment unfolding. Even as the mind gets lost in story after story, perhaps you grasp onto anything because it feels as if the ground is moving, all the while you are standing still. Heart space, breathe, deep, listening. Heart space, breathe, release, listening. May you find the time to sit at the altar of your heart, where your light reveals the shadows that lurk. With compassion as your guard, the breath as your guide, take a closer look. Be kind with what you find. In due time, let all of this dissolve into your loving awareness. Heart space, breathe, deep, listening. Heart space, breathe, release, listening. Ruthie and I would like to offer a song that she'll introduce. Elias, are you going to sing with us, or did you decide not to? Not to, okay. So just Ruthie and I will be singing up here, and Ruthie would like to say, I think, a couple things about the song before we invite you to join us.
Lauren and I used to sing this song at a residential school on the day that we would say goodbye and hello, to the next chapter. We don't know who to credit it to. I have looked everywhere and can't find a title or a name, and it's very simple. It's just 2 lines. So we plan to try our best to sing it for you. To begin with, the goal is to do about 12 times, because by the time we get to maybe time number 3, hopefully, you'll feel really comfortable joining in and finding your own harmony. The song has the word harmony in it. Lauren and I are going to attempt some harmony, but we really hope that you'll sing loudly so that we can hear all of the ways that you bring your perfectly or imperfectly perfect selves to the harmony of this easy song. So we'll aim for 12 times. Lauren's going to give us a kick in the air, as a musician might do when we're in the last round, so that we can really end the last one with a beautiful long harmony at the end. So look for the kick. Find yourself in the harmony, and we're glad to share that kind of space together. Thanks. I gotta sing it. I'm part of you, you're part of me. Listen in tune to the sweet harmony. I'm part of you, you're part of me. Listen Thanks, guys. That's the best. This is by Maya Angelou. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity. And others claim they really live in the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight, brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we are the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
Thank you for singing together. That was really pretty to listen to. I wish I had suggested that everybody sit out a time or two and just listen to the rest of the humans in this room make that sound. It's really beautiful. I'm very grateful to be able to share some thoughts with y'all this morning. I feel some gratitude for this church in having a diversity of people at the pulpit who can share thoughts and feelings and ideas. And I rarely make it to church on Sunday, but I've enjoyed listening recently. To wild spirituality last week was really interesting. RK's talk on climate change, Reverend Bob's on ending racism. I don't know if y'all are not here every Sunday. Occasionally, that's a pretty sweet treat just to hear what people are saying, sort of bouncing thoughts off one another. And I'm really honored that we have a sweet community of circles in this town, soccer and ultimate frisbee and all these other places that my family circulates. And I think there might be some friends here who would, I just feel really grateful that y'all are here in this space this morning, so thank you. It has been a full summer for my family, full of the privilege of travel and a diversity of work. We are fortunate to have really flexible work lives, and this past summer took me either alone or with my family, our sons, Asa and Elias, and my husband, Matthew, far and wide. I took a trip to Nepal. We cycled across a portion of the Midwest, and we spent some time in Vermont to work and reconnect with friends. The travel was both invigorating and exhausting, as you know, who have the privilege of travel, right? That wild mixture. Mainly, it gave me an enormous amount of perspective on what it means to be human in this moment by stepping out of my own house and work and yard and circles of community and witnessing what it means to be human on this planet. I thought a lot about our Unitarian principles as we moved into less familiar spaces and met people whose lives don't necessarily resemble our own. I thought about the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, which is a noble and beautiful, beautiful goal. I thought a lot about the interdependent web of all existence. I thought about worth and dignity, about justice and compassion, and a lot about acceptance of one another, all phrases in our Unitarian guiding principles. One theme that rose up for me again and again, and I share this with some shame, is my own judgmental mind. My own myopic view of the world based on the limited circle of my own existence. Based, too, on my fear. Unitarians, I think, ponder this quite a bit, how our openness, our desire to accept our labeling of ourselves as progressive or liberal can sometimes serve as a handicap and swing us in the opposite direction of being blinded to a diversity of opinion. I don't know if any of you besides me have found this to be true. Yeah. I suspect in this time of divisiveness in our country, when we tend to look at them and us as two distinct camps, that we all struggle. Those of us who hold our UU principles or similar guiding philosophies you may hold as sort of your litmus of how you want to be human in this world, close to our hearts, all of us are struggling with how to live out these ideals, these intellectual and philosophical ideals. Ways of softening our hearts and opening our hearts to ways of being that we find challenging to understand, to ways of thinking that sometimes appear limited, hurtful, narrow, or full of prejudice. I will tell you that I, for one, noticed in myself as we traveled far and wide a tendency to categorize and label others, and a penchant for distancing myself from viewpoints and ways of being that I find hard to comprehend. I can only imagine that this is separating, this placing of myself into a different circle of humanity than the person next to me. It can't lend the healing energy to this world that is so divided. I can only imagine that seeing myself as different serves to build taller and stronger walls. I readily see myself in nature, in the caterpillar, in the rain, in the mud. I see myself in the sky, in children's play, in the hands of our elders. But friends, in this deeply broken system that we're navigating right now, I do not see myself in the faces of many fellow Americans. And that's a confession that's been really hard for me to embrace and feel with my whole body and heart. This summer, I found that my work lay in moving toward coexisting, breathing together, and being filled with the presence of love, the presence of openness, in the company of fellow human beings, many of whom may sit on the opposite side of our country's political divide. I am not someone who listens to a lot of news or follows a lot of social media, and yet I find that I'm incredibly affected in my heart and mind by this divisiveness that we're navigating together. I don't know about you, but I notice in myself a hope that someone's going to save us from this mess. From this mess of many layers that we find ourselves in as human beings on the planet. It wasn't Joe Biden. We're hoping maybe it's Kamala Harris. We turn our eyes to Jesus. We turn our eyes to Buddha. We turn our eyes to the Dalai Lama. We turn our eyes to thinkers and leaders who seem to have things figured out. Somebody must have the answer to all of this. But what if, and this is sort of a question I've been pondering this summer, what if we can feel the most connected, the most full of hope, the most capable as the whole of humanity of positive change, just by being fully with the people we find ourselves standing next to? What if we can begin to see one another, as Rilke writes, as whole against the sky, as capable of lifting one another up, despite or maybe because of our vast differences? I'd like to share some stories with y'all today in this vein. So my family sometimes has fun in unconventional ways, things that other people might not think would be enjoyable, and we have the goal of biking across the country, and we're going about it incrementally. This summer, we picked up our trek in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, aiming to travel across the state of Ohio to the Indiana border. Our first segment, we biked out of Pittsburgh into the West Virginia Panhandle. It's got a couple, I don't know if y'all know that. West Virginia is kind of an interesting state. Before crossing into Ohio. We camped thanks to a hosting organization for bike touring people called Warm Showers. We camped in the yard of a family of 10. We rolled in hot and sweaty and hungry to set up our tent, And we were welcomed into their small family home and invited to supper. They had room to feed 4 more. Children kept emerging into the family dinner space, and pictures of the Virgin Mary and Jesus adorned the walls. I found myself, instead of sitting into the gratitude, I found myself distracted. What do these folks believe? What values do they hold? And I even am ashamed to ask, I thought, how are they going to vote in November? I willed myself to be more present with the experience, to witness, to listen, with an open heart for the possibilities of how we might be so alike. This is hard to do, I find. Fear for the future of our country creeps in, even in a home so full of love. And this feeling that I had really baffled me. It troubled me. On this biking adventure, my family aims to follow the Great American Rail Trail, which has many beautiful off-trail roads, much like Augusta may one day be here. But there are some significant stretches between designated trails where travelers have to find their own routes. If you've ever biked or hiked or walked long distances, especially driven a car pre-GPS, you know the links this metaphor can extend to. Places are unfamiliar. The road is new to us. We have to ask for help. We need one another. I am really technologically, I struggle, I'll just say, I struggle. And my phone died one day, and I looked to Matthew, and his phone was dead. The two of us are not a magic combination in the technology realm. And it was an excruciatingly hot day on really ridiculously hilly gravel roads. We found ourselves on our tandems in these gravel roads in eastern Ohio. And we got turned around. Our water bottles were empty. Cell phones were dead. The map, we had a paper map. It lacked the detail that we needed. So we rode past a house before it dawned on me, like, we need to go back to that house. Like, it's wise to stop. Like, we need to ask for some help. The house was a stereotype with a car and blocks out front, talk radio blaring from the garage. There were no other houses around. I beseeched the Great Spirit, which is sort of my way of praying as I walked up the porch steps. And I said to myself, may whoever answers this door not answer it with a gun in their hand. This is where my mind was. I acknowledged with some shame that my being a white woman with a man and 2 children behind me on the road put me in a really good scenario for approaching a house in the middle of nowhere that may appear to not be open to different ways of living. I didn't know. The gentleman who answered the door was himself a stereotype, and I once again found myself passing 1,000 judgments, despite the fact that this man opened his door to a stranger and readily offered to fill our water bottles when I explained our predicament. I will say to you, I do not know what he believed. I do not know who he held grudges toward, what biases were ingrained in him from his childhood. I could, however, make a guess on how we might be politically different. I do know that we did not scowl or shout at one another. He did not insult me, nor I him. Instead, we shook hands, and he welcomed me, drenched in sweat and bike grease with my drenched in sweat and bike grease family, into his living room. I do not know what a conversation with him about the state of our country might have yielded, whether his or my level-headedness would have turned at some point sour or hateful. I do know that I felt so grateful to witness one little part of this human being in his deep capacity for human-to-human connection. And in order to get to that place, I had to really drop out of the fear and out of the heady space of analyzing these places that sort of felt so different. It's easy to see the danger of putting people in camps, all the brown folks here, all the LGBTQ folks here, all the educated folks, earth-loving, bike-riding moms over here, like we all other people. Primarily folks whose beliefs on some sort of surface level seem really different than ours. How close-minded of me. I do not see us on the same team sometimes. I am part of the problem. I thought about titling this talk this morning, Y'all, I'm part of the problem. I am part of the problem. If I cannot begin to build connection and compassion, and if I continue to follow my wiring to automatically divide myself from others, there's nothing that I want less than to divide myself from others. And I think this sort of really deep recognition of my tendency to do that has been transformative for me. Peter Goldman and Pierce Godwin wrote in a piece in Time magazine last year about bridging this political divide we're navigating in our country. They write that, quote, "The hard truth about America today is that the red and blue Americans need each other desperately. As outlined in a recent World Bank Group report, our nation today is facing multiple, overlapping, and compounding global crises, which quite simply require all hands on deck." All hands on deck, all of us. We cannot afford not to be with one another in what we're navigating as a nation together. We all have families we love. We all want to feel safe and visible. We met many on our summer travels who I suspect might not walk into this church and sit voluntarily among us. Maybe they might not join me in a yoga class. They might not fly a rainbow flag. Maybe. We met a lot of folks this summer. The Ohio Uber driver concerned with rising gas prices. The Midwestern cattle farmer we flagged down for directions who charged our cell phones and delivered ice to our rural campsite. The devoutly Catholic bike touring folks we spent an evening with and shared supper. I want to be a source of connection, of greater love and growth in this life. I found it much easier to hold that energy in my heart when traveling this summer in Nepal. What is it about being half a world away from home and feeling no attachment to a nation's politics or the nuanced thinking of the people who live there? What is it about that softened and opened my heart to people's experiences and realities, that allowed me to fully listen to their stories without formulating a response, even if that response went unspoken? A huge realization for me this summer is my lack of compassion for adults with what I view as closed social views. I have a huge heart for children, coming from a variety of places, but something in me hardens a bit, I'm shy to say. As people become older, maybe I think we should know better. And maybe I need to back off and be quiet and listen. Many of you have daily devotional or meditation practices. In recent years, as I practice the circles of loving kindness, which many of you may be familiar with, and I come to the layer, y'all know this one, where you think of yourself sort of as the center of your own universe, right? Then you think of those it's easy to know and love. Those, it's harder to know and love, and then you think of all beings everywhere, those sort of concentric circles of loving kindness. I come to the layer of people that it's hard to get along with and see eye to eye with. I often picture a small child version of whatever adult I'm feeling some tension with. If I can picture that person as their baby self or their toddler self, this helps me. We've all come up in this wild and confusing world. We've all been swimming in the toxicity of right and wrong, of black and white, for as long as any one of us walking this planet has been breathing. Can we begin to see one another again, and maybe always, as small children, making our way, looking for guidance, trying to feel our own sense of worth? Rumi's poem, One Song, many of y'all are familiar with this one. It says it simply, I think. Every war and every conflict between human beings has happened because of some disagreement about names. It is such an unnecessary foolishness, because just beyond the arguing, there is a long table of companionship set and waiting for us to sit down. What is praised is one, so the praise is one too. Many jugs being poured into a huge basin. All religions, all this singing, one song. The differences are just illusion and vanity. Sunlight looks a little different on this wall than it does on that wall, and a lot different on the other one, but it is still the same light. We have borrowed these clothes, these time and space personalities from a light, and when we praise, we are pouring them back in. We have borrowed these clothes. We are all making our way best as we can on this journey. We are all standing in the light. We are all full of greatness, everybody, full of greatness, full of the ability and potential to elevate our humanity. We can together build a better, more loving world. And it requires an extension of our love in all of the hardest directions. It requires looking not just at what we say and do, but in how we think about others in our darkest moments. Outside of 400 miles on a bike in rural Midwestern America, what would it take for us to open our hearts to those we consider other? What would it take for us to see our agendas, our humanity, as actually overwhelmingly similar? Do not get me wrong, this is a time for using our voices to advocate for justice and the rights of all human beings, no doubt, with the strongest voices that we have. Perhaps it's possible to engage in this work with hearts overflowing with love and respect for all of humanity, with a tenderness for the children we once were and for the children we are raising, with suspended expectation of what wondrous, kind, unrequited things the person next to us may be capable of. I am grateful to each of you. Thank you for listening to this one little person's thoughts this morning. Peace to you all. Yeah, so let's sing. That's a good idea. Hymn 1031 is the hymn filled with loving kindness. Stand as you're able. Use your voice as you're willing. Was that chipmunk cracking y'all up? I didn't even see him until you said something. Yeah. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for showing up with one another and for listening to my thoughts. I know they're not unique thoughts, and many of them are echoed, I'm sure, in your own hearts and minds, and I appreciate your willingness to listen. I found these leaves, these maple leaves, and these cracked green acorns in my walk this morning, and it seemed like a metaphor to me a bit. Our little corner of the world as we walk into fall is letting go of all the stuff that we don't need anymore, right? And simultaneously, like, we're growing all this stuff for tomorrow. Like, we're letting go of all of it, and we're planting all that may grow next. My wish for all of us, for myself and for all of us, may we be willing to do both, with an eye just not on the impact of what we say and do, but on really cultivating the way we're holding our thoughts and our hearts in this vein of growing what it is that we hope to see and letting go of what is no longer helpful or in service. May we grow in connection together with a deep love for all that is. Blessings to everyone. Have a beautiful Sunday. Thank you.
I wish you had time for a quick story, but I know everyone's going to gang up on you.
Oh,
But we did a similar thing with the car. I'll catch you later.
okay, great.
The world's going to come up.
Well, I look forward to chatting with you. Yeah. Hey, thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah.